I'm doing Nagel's article on sexual perversion. He begins by saying the purpose of this paper is to examine sexual perversions as a concept, defend it against the charge of unintelligibility, and see what about human sexuality allows us to have perversions. He starts off by outlining perversions as being plausibly described as unnatural and being unnatural sexual inclinations. He notes that for this reason, contraception, for example, would not be sexually perverse. Nagel goes on to claim that sexual perversion has nothing to do with reproduction and that it's not based on social disapproval. He then presents a skeptical argument that casts doubt on the existence of perversion at all. He says that, quote-unquote, sexual desire is simply one of the appetites like hunger and thirst. He then says that things can be sexual or not, and that's all there is to it, and that sexuality is not the sort of affection that allows for imperfection or perversion. And then he ends the skeptical argument there. He continues with the hunger analogy then, saying that it seems that even an appetite can have perversions if there is a significant psychological function associated with the biological functions. Like hunger, he argues, sexual desire is about the relation between desire and the object of desire. Just the fact that the objects of desire are people in these situations is what complicates things. A key point he makes here is that sexual attraction is about the particular individual. While the features of the individual we might find attractive, the desire is directed at the person, not those features. He then makes an argument based on that of Sartre's, but the difference with his is that it allows for sexuality to succeed. He says that it's the process of sensing the other sensing the other sensing you, and so on and so forth. He calls this reflexive mutual recognition. He then goes on to talk about how, unlike hunger, sexual desire involves the whole body becoming immersed and saturated in it. The process of sexual desire ideally leads to, he says, an enhancing of the original subject's sense of self. He then finally returns to the topic of perversion. He says that his examples of narcissism, bestiality, sadism, and masochism are stuck at some early point of his outline of sexual desire. He then moves on to three more he finds more problematic elaborations on the sexual act: sex with multiple partners at once, like an orgy, and homosexuality. He concludes from this that even if his proposed model of sexuality is correct, we can't describe every deviation of it as a perversion. He briefly touches on morality, saying that he doesn't know whether judgments of sexuality are moral judgment. He then ends by saying that it isn't clear whether unperverted sex is better or worse than perverted sex, and then his final statement is that most of the time any sex is better than no sex, and that the options must be pretty grim for some to choose none. Okay, now my take on Nagel's article. While I feel that he has a sound argument throughout, his logic is good in all the cases, that he seems to just change the definition of perversion so much by the time he returns to it on page 13 that it just is not talking about what it seems like he'd be talking about in the beginning. And then you can notice that on the first page he has a sort of safety sentence that can make this argument avoid all those problems by saying that certain practices will be perversion if anything is. But if this is an article examining what perversion is, then I don't really see where that sentence fits in with the rest. My only other problem with it is that by the end, in addition to changing the definition of perversion so much, in my opinion, is that he doesn't really answer any of the questions he laid out and just simply says that he doesn't really know what to say about sexual perversion, and I just find that a little disappointing. He seems to just conclude that he picked something very difficult to make claims about and had difficulty making claims about it.